What is up, my guys? So this is Mystery School back again for another video. Here we have the infamous NPC, the NPC meme, whatever you want to call it, the non-playable character. Let's cover this topic. I have addressed it in previous videos, like the players of the game video that people seem to like a lot, but let's look at it a little bit more in depth. So let's go. So, what is the NPC meme or the NPC idea here? So we have the NPC Wojak. This is our Wojak, and many variants of Wojak exist on the internet, but either way. NPC Wojak is a depiction of the MS Paint character, Wojak, with a blank stare and facial expression, named after non-player characters within video games. The character is meant to represent people who do not think for themselves or are incapable of having an internal monologue, bearing many similarities to the terms basic and normie. So I don't cover the topic of internal monologue in this video, but I might cover it in another video if you guys want. At the end of the day, these people here, it's like a super cluster of like people who can't think alone or think on their own. These people need support. They all run off of a group think. They run off of like a collective group of ideas that the moment that one of them tries to leave, they immediately bring that person back in hopes of keeping them within the group. These are not free thinkers. These people just they don't think. They let the group think for them, and then they act accordingly. Terms basic and normie. Normies are, I would say, a lot of them are NPCs. I think that's what I said in my first video. A lot of them are NPCs, and a lot of them are pretty basic. You get the term basic bitch. Yeah, these chicks they just follow the trend. They aren't bad people, but they just follow the trend. They don't really think about anything that they're doing. They just kind of like live their life. They're effectively background noise. And then you have stuff like normie. Normies are just, once again, they're very basic. They don't mean any harm, but ultimately at the end of the day, you aren't going to get much out of them when it comes to like getting any real sort of like original thoughts or original ideas out of them. So once again, they're not bad people. These aren't bad things to be per se. It's okay to have a normal life or be basic, but you aren't anything special either. So, all right. But really, the NPC meme comes from this theory here. I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but it's basically the idea is like it's the theory of a fixed quantity of souls on Earth. This man here is like saying, I have a theory. There are only a fixed quantity of souls on the planet Earth that continuously cycle through reincarnation. So if you believe in that Hinduism stuff, these souls just come back down every time and they get put into different bodies. But at the end of the day, it's the same soul. So, however, since the human growth rate is so severe, the soulless extras walking flesh piles around us are all NPCs or ultimate normal fags who autonomously follow groupthink and social trends in order to appear convincingly human. I'm not reading the rest of this, but extra human beings are soulless. Basically, the in a way like the baby boom, they kind of like they that happened, and then you have like on top of that you have other generations, and at the end of the day, like we have a massive amount of people on the planet Earth, and effectively not everybody can get a soul. But I do question this because it's a matter of, okay, so I asked the question, are souls equal? I would say no, nothing in this planet is equal, and I would apply that to being souls too, assuming you even believe in the idea of a soul. But whatever. But the next question I ask is, and do they really not have souls, or are they just not as strong? And we're gonna get into this. This is gonna be really the crux of the video here. Is that are these souls just not as good as the souls that the player characters or the non NPCs get? Maybe they do have souls, but they're just like weaker souls. So let's continue. So we're going to cover the topic of distribution here of resources and people. So, in this picture we have two shapes, a circle or a pie and a triangle. The circle could be a triangle and the triangle could be a circle. Every circle is a triangle and every triangle is a circle. Another way of saying this is that all resources have hierarchies and that all hierarchies are resources. It's all about perspective. We know the 80-20 rule. We know about the 80-20 rule and the idea of hierarchy. The few get the most, the middle gets some, and the many gets very little. This is true for most things. Let's use the example of political power. So our resource up here is power. Political power up here is the X. And we're going to distribute that among people. Okay, well, when it comes to something like, power, political power, those closer to power have more of it, and those further away have less. The politicians or the few wield this power over some of the middle, wield this power over some of the middle, and mostly over the many. So the few rule over the many. They use the resource up here of power, political power. They take that resources, and this resource is distributed among the masses. So the few not being the masses, really, but they're part of the masses, but they're really not. This resource up here is being distributed. The few get most of it, the middle gets some of it, and the many almost get none of it. So let's see. Politician, blah blah. Okay, others in the few, like the rich, always seek to wield this power of the politician. Now they are one step removed from it, but they still exert influence over it. Okay, so let's use another example of intelligence or information. Let's say that our X is information. The information is taken in by the few. So let's say we have information that gets a resource of information that gets taken in by the CIA, FBI, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And the people who are closer to that information, well, of course, they all have it. They all know the truth, quote unquote, up here. The information is in their hands. And they might give you, these people are the first people to know. And the few could pass down a watered down version of the information down to the middle and the many. Effectively, this is how a lot of things work. If you're closer to a source of resources or power, or insert whatever you want to insert up here, you obviously have an advantage. It makes perfect sense. If you're closer to management, you're probably going to get promoted. If you're closer to things like money, you could end up with money rather. It's not so much money, I guess, maybe like the system, the Federal Reserve System. The banks get the money first, so they end up richer, and then the banks distribute the money out to you via loans, yada yada yada. This is how the game normally works. Resources at the top, distributed down this hierarchy, and you could take this resource. But keep in mind, not all resources are created equal either. So you could take this resource thing here, make it into a triangle, effectively, and say, okay, well, if you're going to distribute something like resources like food, okay, well, not all foods are created equal. So certain foods are more nutritious. If that was going to be our scale, if we could have the top being the nutritious foods, the middle being somewhat nutritious foods, and we had the bottom being shit like Burger King and shitty food at the very bottom. You could take this resource up here and turn it into a hierarchy. You take something like money or currency. Okay, well, the U.S. dollar is the king dollar right now, so the king currency right now is at the very top. You have the euro and the British pound sterling in the middle here, or close to the top. You have stuff like the rest of the crappy currencies in the world somewhere at the bottom down here getting fucked over. But at the end of the day, you can take any X and make it into a triangle, or rather any resource of a distribution of a pie of resources up here and turn it into a triangle, depending on your perspective and what you're trying to measure. At the end of the day, everything kind of runs this way in some way. And when conservatives talk about expanding the pie, well, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about expanding the amount of resources available, and that way everybody gets more. But at the end of the day, the few is still going to get more of that pie. It's kind of like, hey, we'll make the pie bigger, and we'll make sure that your crumbs are bigger, but at the end of the day, you're still getting crumbs. Okay, so, oh man, distribution of souls. So not all souls are created equal. Let's create a hierarchy of souls. Okay, so yes, I did steal this from Dark Souls wiki. It is what it is, but it had pretty good pictures. They do a good job of showing a hierarchy of souls. So you have Lord Souls at the top, your Boss Souls kind of close to the top, right below it. Your middle tier souls in the middle. So these like soul of a great hero here, right here. So that soul there. You have decent souls in the middle. These guys here are kind of decent. You get like what 500 souls, 1,000 souls from these guys here. You got these shit tier souls down here. You probably don't even use these souls. And then you have these fading souls, which are literally like the absolute shit tier of souls. Like you might as well not even have them. So these are the absolute worst souls at the very bottom. So we can take this hierarchy and turn it into a pie. Most of the pie would be lower level souls with very few higher level souls. Depending on what our measurement is going, or our measurement is, it could also measure the power or usefulness of souls. So in this case, the Lord Souls would take up a massive portion of the chart, while the smaller souls would fill in the rest. In Christian mythology, tells us that God gave us the breath of life and we became alive. This is the idea of like, I guess, the soul entering the body. God gave us a soul, and now we started moving around. So like, okay, well, you could say that, hey, God gave Adam the fucking Lord's soul, and then that got distributed down to us, and then at the end of the day, there's only one of those souls, or few of those souls laying around the earth anymore, and we have these shit tier souls that kind of spring off from that hierarchy of Adam and Eve at the very top, blah 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 blah. Assuming you believe in Christian mythology. If you don't, I mean, at the end of the day, you probably don't even believe in the idea of a soul, but who gives a fuck, right? This is a fun thought experiment video about NPCs. So yeah. So let's keep going here. So I feel like I wanted to say something here. Fuck. Uh, Now let's keep going. Fuck it. All right. So distribution of souls. So if we were to look at this thing in terms of power, in terms of power here, this chart would be a chart showing the souls in terms of power over the world. This is by no means accurate, but rather to show the proportion of power that a soul could have. So right now you have like the Lord souls have like most of the power, like 6% here. Your boss hero souls have like 20% of the power. Your middling souls have like 15%, and your fading souls have like 5. Like they almost have like no power really. So, in terms of power and influence over the world, of course, the Lord Soul is going to have way more than the rest because they're just that powerful. They're just that cool. The rest of these souls got to fight over the scraps and figure out who's going to have more. At the end of the day, though, it is what it is. These Lord Souls are too powerful. Government here getting fucked. All right. Oh man, so we have the distribution of souls. This is what I said earlier of like, now if you were to the first example would be by power. So by power, obviously Lord Souls would have more power, but by just the amount of souls in the system, well, there's far more fading souls than there are Lord Souls. Lord Souls is this little sliver up here, Hero Souls and Boss Souls over here, Middling Souls over here, and the rest of these guys are just absolute shit tier fading souls. There's plenty of these guys, not a lot of these. Oh yeah, I know what I was gonna say earlier. So basically, I can go back over here in that players of the game video, I talk about how like certain people are like, if you're like a cog in a machine, effectively, you have the cogs down here, just these cogs that you can just easily take in, throw out, put them anywhere, and it wouldn't really matter if I lost one of these cogs. If I lose this cog though, that's a really big loss to take. I can't lose because it takes a long time to make one of these. If that makes any sense. Like it's like having a specialty tool that can only be made in like one country versus these little sprockets down here that anybody and their grandma can make in their basement. Like, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. These matter. These in reality don't matter that much if I lose a few of these. It's like pawns versus the king on a chessboard. All right, back down to business though. Okay, souls in the system. So in this example, we're talking about the amount of souls in the system. Once again, these numbers are not representative of anything, but rather just to show the rarity of Lord souls and other higher tier souls. If we were to distribute these in a hierarchy, only 3 people would have Lord souls. This is just the number I use. This is completely arbitrary. Who knows how many Lord souls there really are in the world? Assuming the souls are even fucking real. So the rest would end up with something else. Some other bullshit. Fading soul. You're very, very likely to get one of these, or one of these, or one of these. Okay, so while in this case the many would have more souls, they would have more lesser souls. It's sort of like the serf having copper coins while the king has gold coins. The copper coins are plentiful rather, and the gold coins are rare but more valuable. Basically, it's a matter of quality over quantity. The Lord Soul, he's quality soul. He's great. He's fucking phenomenal. These down here, dog, you can go to fucking Burger King, McDonald's, get a fucking double cheeseburger, and it's like, this shit don't matter, dog. Like, okay, anybody and their grandma can get a double cheeseburger. Not everybody can go to, I don't know, some specialty burger place that costs $1,000 to get a cheeseburger. It's a matter of quality over quantity. Just a lot of these, not a lot of these. More rare, more valuable. Basic supply and demand shit. Okay, now we get into God's Debris by Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy. It's just a thought experiment here, so this is not to be meant to be taken literally at all. But it's a pretty fun one. It's a pretty interesting concept he comes up with here. So the basic premise of this book is that God annihilated himself in the Big Bang and now exists as the smallest units of matter and the law of probability. So he exists as like, the Higgs boson or some weird shit, and he exists as the law of probability. And basically, the main focus, my main focus rather, is less on the central idea of this book, and more on the levels of consciousness he describes in his book. Um, So we have level 1 here of consciousness at birth, pure innocence, self-awareness. Level 2, awareness of others and acceptance of authority, a belief system. Level 3, awareness that some beliefs may be wrong, but not sure which ones. Level 4, skepticism and adoption of the scientific method. And level 5, you have the avatar level shit. Understanding that the human mind is a delusion generating machine, and that science is another belief system, albeit a useful one. Now, my question is there a level of 0? I guess you could call that death, but not so much 0, but something approaching 0, like something below level 1. So like a point 0.5. Is it like a point 0.5 or a point 0.2? Is there a level 0 that lets you have some of those things, like, let's say you have consciousness, but maybe you lack self-awareness. Maybe you're not self-aware. Maybe you lack this, but you have this. Or hell, maybe you lack this, but you do have this somehow. I don't know. Like, is there a level where, like, could you have some of these things dispersed in between? Maybe you have awareness, but you don't have, I don't know, and you're self-aware, but you don't have some of these things down here. Who knows? And like, would you be like a level like 2.5 because you haven't really made it up here yet? I'd imagine that these probably just these levels are like very very hard to find, but there's probably in between levels here that you could probably define. But I doubt he went into that much depth in this thought experiment here. Perhaps it would be level 0, but maybe something approaching it. Yeah, it would be. And would such a being be one with a soul? So would a level 0 soul, or someone be below a 1, be something with a soul, like a point 0.5? Like, could you have like half of a fading soul? I suppose. Like, would you even be considered alive? Would you be considered a walking meat bag machine? Like, I don't know. Crazy. Oh man. So when it comes to the NPC meme, if true, it might not be a case of not having a soul, but rather that their souls are weak and therefore they rely on groupthink and band together to create a will strong enough to influence the world like a lord or boss's soul can. Alone, a weak soul can do nothing. Together, a bunch of weak souls might amount to one middling soul when it comes to power. So, this has been Mystery School. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Sources of Wikipedia, good old Know Your Meme here, picks from some Dark Souls wiki shit, and the good old brain. Alright guys, never forget that wisdom is gold. I'll have another video out sometime this week. Have a good week.